Chapter 14. Proof. Things just never seem to turn out the way you expect. I thought I was going to wake up in Manhattan like I did last time. Instead, I found myself standing in front of a house on a residential street. Kids were playing stoop ball next door. It looked like Brooklyn. A sign on the corner read, McDonald Street. It was chilly. I was glad I listened to Mom and brought a coat, but wished I'd brought my winter coat. A car was parked at the curb, so I looked in the rear-view mirror. Yeah, I was still a white kid. A rolled-up copy of the New York Times was on the stoop. I picked it up to check the date. October 4th, 1947. October? 6 months of 1947 had passed by. Baseball season was over. Then I noticed the lead article on the front page. Yankees defeat Dodgers 2-1 for 3-2 lead in World Series. It was the middle of the World Series. A Subway Series. The Dodgers were playing the Yankees, who led 3-2. Farther down the page, it talked about the tremendous season Jackie had. After he broke out of his slump, he went on a 21-game hitting streak and finished the season at .297. He led the Dodgers in homers. He led the whole league in stolen bases, stealing twice as many as any other player. I walked up the steps of the house and rang the buzzer. There must be a reason I landed here, I figured. Maybe the people who live here can tell me where Jackie Robinson is. But it was Jackie Robinson who answered the door. What can I do for you, son? Jackie, it's me, Joe Stashak, I said. Remember me? Joe Stashak? Jackie looked puzzled. Stash is a Negro boy. I know, but it's really me, I explained. I can prove it to you. You used to live in the McAlpin Hotel in Manhattan. Lots of people know that, Jackie said. We moved. That doesn't prove anything. I searched my mind to think of something only Jackie and I knew. Remember when I told you I came from the future? I asked. And I bet you that you would win the Rookie of the Year award? And you took the bet because there was no Rookie of the Year award? Yes. They started a Rookie of the Year award, didn't they? Yes. And you won it, right? Yes. So doesn't that prove I'm Joe Stashak? Jackie stared at me like he was trying to look inside my head. He still wasn't entirely convinced, I could tell. I slept on your couch, I said desperately. You like to have a late-night snack of bread dunked in milk with sugar. Jackie looked at me with amazement. Did you really come from the future? He put his arm around my shoulder. Where have you been? He asked. You disappeared that day. How did you... He touched the skin on my face, as if he wanted to see if I was wearing a mask. It's a long story, I said. Did you happen to find a suitcase in your locker back in April? Yeah, the initials JS were on it, so I figured it was yours. It's upstairs. I brought it home in case you showed up again. I breathed a sigh of relief. My $1 million baseball cards were safe. Jackie led me inside his new apartment. It was a nicer place with a lot more room. Fan mail was scattered all over. Ray, Jackie hollered, guess who's here? Mrs. Robinson came out carrying Jackie Jr. on her hip. He was a lot bigger than I remembered him. Dada, Jackie Jr. gurgled. I give up, Mrs. Robinson said. Who are you? Joe Stashak, ma'am. Very funny, she replied. I had anticipated the Robinsons wouldn't believe I was the same Joe Stashak, or that I had come from the future. That's why I photocopied a few articles while I was back home in Louisville. I pulled a piece of paper out of my pocket and handed it to them. Tuesday, July 24th, 1962. Robinson, 43, inducted into Hall of Fame. First black player honored for pioneering effort and excellence. Feller, also inducted. By Howard Wolf. Cooperstown, July 23rd. Jackie Roosevelt Robinson, a poor boy from Georgia who went on to become perhaps the most famous athlete in America, was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame today. As he read it, Jackie's eyes got all watery, and I thought he was going to cry. Rachel simply stared at me like she thought she might be in the middle of a dream or something. "I have so many questions I want to ask you," Jackie said, once he'd regained his composure. "You probably want to know if the Dodgers are going to win the World Series, right?" I asked. "No," he replied immediately. "I'll know that in a couple of days. I want to know what America is going to be like for my people in the future. Will conditions be better? Worse? The same? Is everything I went through this season going to make a difference?" "You made a difference," I said. "A big difference." "Prejudice will be gone?" he asked hopefully. "Things will be better," I answered honestly. "Much better. In my time, there are lots of Negro ball players. Most people don't even think about what color an athlete's skin is. Negroes manage baseball teams. There are Negro mayors and governors and police chiefs." Jackie's eyes danced with hope. "But there are still a lot of problems," I continued. "Racism, riots. A lot of white people still hate Negroes, and a lot of Negroes still hate whites. Bad stuff happens. Nobody seems to know the solution to the problem, but a lot of people of both races are searching for it." Jackie looked at me with a mixture of disappointment and determination. Chapter 15. Game 6. On the ride to Yankee Stadium, Jackie filled me in. The Yankees won the first 2 games of the World Series, and the Dodgers took the next 2. In Game 5, the Yankees squeaked out a 2-1 victory. So if the Dodgers lost today, the series would be over. If they won, it would be all tied up at 3 games each, and Game 7 would be played tomorrow. I had seen the house that Ruth built on TV, of course. My dad always watched whenever the Yankees were on. But as Jackie and I walked inside Yankee Stadium for the first time, and I stood at home plate, I felt shivers. The stadium looked beautiful, all dressed up in red, white, and blue bunting. Jackie went to put on his uniform. You could feel the history in Yankee Stadium. This was where Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig made their famous farewell speeches, I marveled. This was where Ruth hit his 60th home run in 1927, and where Roger Maris would hit his 61st to top the record in 1961. Above the upper deck, 10 World Championship pennants flapped in the wind. The monuments out in center field looked like they were a mile away. Death Valley, it was called. The outfield seemed to be twice as deep as the one at Ebbets Field. I was standing there drinking it all in when somebody tapped me on the shoulder. "You the new bat boy?" I turned around. It was Aunt. "Yeah," I said confidently. "I'm the new bat boy." "At least you ain't colored," he said. "At the beginning of the season, some black boy walked in here and told me he was a new bat boy. I hired him and he ran out on me." Aunt peered at me for a moment. "Hey, ain't I seen you somewhere before?" "Maybe," I replied. "In the streets." "What's your name?" "Joe," I said simply. Aunt told me to haul out the bats, balls, gloves, sunglasses, pine tar, resin bag, chewing tobacco, and all the other stuff the players needed. I knew the routine. When the Dodgers filed into the visitors' clubhouse, I almost didn't recognize the team. Even though they were behind 3 games to 2, they were loose, chatting, laughing, and snapping towels at one another. There were card games going on. Poker, bridge, hearts. Jackie was right in the middle of everything. One of the guys. "Hey, Huey," Jackie asked Hugh Casey, the big apple-cheeked relief pitcher. "How'd you strike out DiMaggio the other day?" "Fooled him with my knuckler, Jack," Casey replied. "I didn't know you had a knuckler." "Neither did DiMaggio," Casey chortled, and both men doubled over laughing. I could hardly believe my eyes. The 2 of them were sharing a joke, like 2 white guys would, like 2 black guys would, but not like a white guy and a black guy ever would, at least not in 1947. Dixie Walker came over to Jackie with a bat. I almost expected him to hit Jackie with it, but instead he held the bat up as if he were about to swing at a pitch. "Last night I was laying in bed thinking," Dixie told Jackie, "you got a real wide stance. I bet you'd be able to handle the curve better if you didn't stride so far." "Like this?" Jackie asked, demonstrating his batting stance. "Yeah." "Now try it," Jackie said. "Thanks, Dixie." "Don't mention it." Dixie Walker sharing batting tips with Jackie Robinson? I thought I was hallucinating. Some black guy walked over to Jackie, and Jackie glanced at me as they spoke. The guy looked familiar to me, but I couldn't place him. Jackie motioned me over. "Joe, I want to introduce you to somebody," Jackie said. "He joined the team in August. This is my roomie on road trips, Dan Bankhead." Dan Bankhead? He was the guy I helped in the alley when I first arrived in 1947. He made it to the Dodgers, just as he had hoped. I shook Bankhead's hand and didn't bother mentioning we had met before. When the Dodgers filed out on the field for practice, every seat in Yankee Stadium was already filled. I had never seen so many people in one place at one time. Somebody said the attendance was more than 70,000. The Yankee fans were nothing like the Dodger fans at Ebbets Field. They were more reserved, almost dignified. They clapped their hands respectfully when they saw Jackie, like they were at a tennis match or something. It was like the difference between a fancy restaurant and McDonald's. The food might be better at the fancy place, but somehow you have a better time at McDonald's. The Dodgers warmed up along the third base side. There was no need for Jackie to find a partner. He played catch with Pee Wee Reese, Eddie Stenke, Carl Furillo, and Gene Hermansky. Manager Barney Schotten filled out his lineup card in the Dodger dugout. Then the Yankees came out of their clubhouse. The Bronx Bombers. Joe DiMaggio. The great DiMaggio was standing there in flesh and blood, not more than 90 feet from me. Phil Rizzuto. Yogi Berra. Tommy Henrik. These were the guys my dad always told me about. The program said the Yankees won 19 games in a row during the season and cruised to the American League pennant by 14 games. They led the league in homers, triples, runs, batting average, and slugging average. They were awesome. There was a buzz in the stands. I stepped out of the dugout to see what was going on. A large man, wearing a long camel's hair coat and walking with a cane, was being helped to a box seat behind the Yankees' dugout. He looked like he was about 70 years old. "Who's the old coot?" I asked Aunt. "Can't hardly recognize him, can you? The poor slob is dying from cancer. That's Babe Ruth." Babe Ruth? The most famous player in the history of baseball. A dead living legend. I rose from the bench as if a magnet pulled me up. I had to meet him. "Hey kid," one of the Dodgers said to me, "we need another pine tar rag in the on-deck circle." "In a minute," I said. I grabbed a pen and hopped the fence to where Ruth was sitting. His wife and a few other people surrounded him, but I walked up to him anyway. "Babe," I said, thrusting my scorecard and pen at him, "can I have your autograph?" "Mr. Ruth is tired, Sonny," his wife said. But Ruth silenced her with a wave of his trembling hand, taking my scorecard with the other. "What's your name, kid?" he asked, his voice scratchy and hoarse. "Joe Stashak," I said, "but make it out to my dad. His name is Bill." "Did your dad ever see me play?" Ruth asked as he scribbled on the scorecard. "No," I replied. "He was too young." Ruth stopped writing and looked at me, puzzled. I realized right away that what I'd said made no sense to him. Scrambling to recover, I said something even dumber. "But maybe I'll get to see you play one day." "I don't think so, kid," Ruth replied with a chuckle. "My playing days are long gone. Long gone." He handed me back my scorecard and turned to face the field. I put it in my pocket and started to walk away, but then I remembered something. "Mr. Ruth," I said, "can I ask you one question?" "Sure, kid." "Did you call your shot in the 1932 World Series?" Ruth looked at me. At last, I would hear the answer to the biggest mystery in baseball history. A smile crept across his face. "That's for me to know, kid. and you'd find out." He leaned his head back and let out a bellowing laugh. I rushed back to the dugout. The Yankees and Dodgers had lined up along the baselines. Nobody moved away from Jackie Robinson this time. Guy Lombardo and his orchestra played the national anthem. The ump shouted, "Play ball!" and the Yankees took the field. In the first inning, the Dodgers jumped all over Allie Reynolds, the Yankee starter. Eddie Stanky led off with a line single to left. Pee Wee Reese watched 2 pitches out of the strike zone, then poked a single up the middle. Jackie stepped up to the plate. The Yankee infielders moved in to defend against the bunt, but Jackie wasn't bunting. He blooped one to left, and it dropped in near the foul line. The bases were loaded with nobody out. The Dodgers smelled blood. They could break the game wide open from the start. Dixie Walker, unfortunately, hit a sharp grounder to short. Phil Rizzuto scooped it up. As he raced to tag second, Jackie came barreling in and knocked him off his feet. Rizzuto got off the throw to complete the double play, but he paid the price. He was on the ground for 5 minutes before he was able to struggle to his feet. Stanky scored on the play. Reese came home on a pass ball, and the Dodgers jumped out to a 2-0 lead. Brooklyn scored 2 more runs in the third inning when Reese, Jackie, and Dixie hit back-to-back-to-back doubles. The Dodgers led 4-0, and that sent Allie Reynolds to the showers. It looked like the Bums might run away with the game. Left-hander Vic Lombardi, the Dodger starter, didn't allow a base runner for the first 2 innings, but the Yankees roared back with 5 hits in the third. When all was said and done, the Yankees had knocked Vic Lombardi out of the game and tied it at 4-4. Ralph Branca came in to pitch for Brooklyn. The Yankees greeted him with 3 singles in the 4th inning, and it was Yanks 5, Dodgers 4. Nobody scored in the 5th. When the Dodgers came to bat in the 6th, there was a sense of urgency on the bench. Time was running out. The Yankees had already brought in their top reliever, lefty Joe Page. Bruce Edwards started things off with a single to right. Carl Furillo followed with a double in the left field corner. Runners on second and third. Cookie Lavagetto came up to pinch hit. He hit a long sacrifice fly to right, scoring Edwards. Tie game. I heard a few sighs of relief from the Brooklyn dugout. Bobby Bragan was called on to pinch hit, and he doubled to left. That scored Furillo and put the Dodgers up 6-5. On the bench, the Dodgers were yelling and screaming. Even though he was a pitcher, Dan Bankhead was brought in to run for Bragan. On the mound, Joe Page kicked the dirt angrily. The top of the order was up for the Dodgers. Eddie Stanky pounded a single to right. Bankhead held up at third. Stanky advanced to second base on the throw home. Now the Dodgers could do some real damage. Joe Page was out of the game. Bobo Newsom came in to pitch for the Yankees. Pee Wee Reese was up. Newsom delivered, and Reese smacked a single to center, his 3rd hit of the day. Bankhead and Stanky crossed the plate. Dodgers 8, Yankees 5. It was a great battle, and I was enjoying every minute of it. When the Dodgers made their 3rd out, I plopped on the bench next to Al Gianfrido. He was a little guy, not much bigger than me. His eyes seemed watery, like he was crying or something. "You allergic to something?" I asked. "Nah," he said. "This may be the last game of my career." Gianfrido told me that he'd hit only 177 all season and had only 2 home runs in his entire career. He was pretty good with the glove, he said, but that's not enough to keep a player in the league. He worked as a fireman during the off-season and would probably do it year-round after the Dodgers released him. "But you're famous," I protested. "You made one of the greatest catches in baseball history, didn't you?" Gianfrido said he didn't know what I was talking about. "Frito!" Dodger manager Barney Schotten shouted. "Take over left field." Joe Hatton came in to pitch for the Dodgers. He retired the first 2 Yankees, but then he walked a batter and gave up a single to Yogi Berra. 2 on, 2 out. The Dodgers had a 3-run lead, but no lead was safe against the Yankees. And now the tying run was at the plate. Joe DiMaggio. He hit a homer yesterday, Aunt told me. A home run now would tie the game. Joe D could go long ball at any time. DiMaggio jumped on Hatton's first pitch and connected. He slashed a bullet to left. The ball was heading in the direction of the low bullpen fence. A roar escaped from the crowd. Everybody on the Dodger bench stood up to watch the flight of the ball. It would have been out of Ebbets Field easily, but Yankee Stadium had a lot of running room. Gianfrido had been playing shallow left field, but he put his head down and began sprinting toward the fence. The outfield fence in Yankee Stadium wasn't cushy and padded, as they all are in my time. There were concrete walls and sharp fences. The ball was starting to come down, and Gianfrido could tell it was going to land near the low wire fence. A sign next to the fence indicated it was 415 feet from home plate. The two Yankee base runners were running on anything and had already reached home plate. DiMaggio had slowed into his home run trot. He knew he'd hit the ball hard enough to get it over the fence. Gianfrido was still running full speed, his back toward the plate. His cap flew off. As he got close to the fence, he peeked over his left shoulder. He saw that the ball was coming down over his opposite shoulder. He twisted around and stretched his glove out over the fence like he was catching a football pass. He jumped and turned to avoid crashing into the fence. The ball hit the top of the webbing of his glove. It stuck there. 3 outs. The Dodgers screamed with joy. The Yankee fans couldn't believe it. Gianfrido held his glove up for the umpires to see. Half of the ball was sticking out of the webbing like a snow cone. DiMaggio kicked the dirt near second base in frustration. When Gianfrido came back to the dugout, he stared at me. "Nice catch," I said. The Yankees threatened in the 7th and picked up a run in the 9th inning, but Dodger relief ace Hugh Casey was on the mound and he wasn't giving an inch. For the last out of the game, Casey gloved a grounder back to the mound and flipped it to Jackie at first. Final score, Dodgers 8, Yanks 6. The World Series was all tied up at 3 games apiece. Game 7 was scheduled for Yankee Stadium the next day. Dodgers set back Yankees by 8-6 for 3-3 series tie. Route Page with 4 and 6 to win before 74,065. New crowd mark for Classic. 38 players in the game. Gianfrido's great catch of DiMaggio's drive prevents losers from tying score. The Dodgers whooped it up in the clubhouse as if the World Series were over. They were throwing little Al Gianfrido up in the air and catching him. Dixie Walker set Bobby Bragan's pants on fire. Somebody nailed Jackie's shoes to the floor. Guys were having contests to see who could spit tobacco juice the farthest. A few of them were running around in jockstraps playing clubhouse ball. That is, they were pitching beer cans and whacking them with bats. They were crazy. The celebration finally wound down, and most of the players were gone when Ant walked up to me. He grabbed my shoulder and spun me around. "How come you got the same name as the colored kid?" he demanded. "What?" I asked. He showed me my wallet. "The black boy told me his name was Joe Stashak, and now I see it's your name, too." "That's none of your business," I said, grabbing the wallet from him. "Keep your paws off my stuff." "There's only one explanation for this," Ant said. "You're a black disguised as a Polak, and you came from the future. You've got real psychological problems, Ant. You ought to get help." "You're the one who's going to need help," he said. "How do you explain this?" He pulled out my Game Boy and held it in front of me. "It's a portable video game system," I explained. "You play games on it." "Ah, sure you do," Ant said. "I bet it's some kind of a secret spy gadget. You're a communist spy, aren't you?" "Give me a break, Ant." "I finally figured you out, Stashak, or whatever your real name is. The commies want to steal our atomic secret so they can take over. You've been sent here from the future to infiltrate us. You thought you could fool us by disguising yourself as a colored boy. Ain't that right? Well, it didn't work." "Man, what a nutcase." Ant made fists and started dancing around like a boxer. "Put 'em up, you colored commie Polak." Jackie was watching from his locker. I looked at him. He looked back at me and raised his eyebrows, as if to say, "So, what are you going to do about it?" I turned around and walked away from Aunt. I had better things to do than mix it up with a lunatic. Game 7 would be tomorrow. Then I would go back to Louisville. I couldn't wait.